Good morning, everyone. This is Jeffy Kennedy, author of fantasy romance and romantic fantasy. I'm here with my first cup of coffee. So good. Today is Tuesday, November 2nd, Day of the Dead. Happy Dia de los Muertos here from Santa Fe. Now, talk a little bit more about fight scenes versus sex scenes, something that occurred to me later in the day after talking about the fight scenes on the episode yesterday. Um, and also about Brittany Murphy, if you guys watched that documentary, and about notifications. I've got a new phone, and I discovered this. Not discovered. I mean, it's actually appalling. It is freaking appalling, you guys. The notifications that come embedded on the phone. So I know I've talked about this before about disabling notifications, uh, and I'm a huge proponent of just disable all the freaking notifications, you guys. Um, the only things that I have that give me sound alerts are text messages, Google Hangouts messages, because that's how a couple of people contact me, phone calls. Um, that's it. But this new phone, I mean, I even went in originally and just on the apps, did the turn off notifications on the apps, and I'm still getting notifications from random bizarre shit. And it's making me have to do it on each one every time I get a notification like, hey, do you want to use Bixby? And I'm like, no, I do not want to fucking use Bixby. Um, it's just unreal. And I think that it's a measure of being aware of other people trying to drive your behavior, that all of these applications, all of these social media companies, every one of them, they are hugely invested in getting you to get notifications from them because they want to grab your attention. They want you to pay attention to them. And that's when you should always be suspicious. It's like, why do they want your attention? Some of the answers obvious, but it's like, if they want your attention so badly, don't give it to them, or give it to them on your terms. You know, it's one of the first things I tell people when they say that they're having trouble writing or that they can't concentrate. Oh, just turn that fucker off. Turn off your phone. But even better, take the time and go through and remove all of those notifications. Remove the pop-ups, the light-ups. I see notifications if I actually go to the app. Like if I go to Instagram and I click on the little heart, then I can see if people have tried to contact me, if they've liked stuff, if they commented. But it's on my terms. See my point? Um, I think that with the growing revelations of the Facebook papers, as people are calling it, um, and some of the stuff that's come out about Twitter now too, that starting in 2016, that if you looked at Twitter on their interface, that they prioritized tweets that had the algorithm prioritized tweets that had angry content or controversial content. uh, and so when we talk about all of the divisiveness and anger starting in 2016, it was hugely exacerbated by both exasperated. We were exasperated. It was hugely exacerbated by Facebook and Twitter because that's how they get the clicks. Everything is click driven, right? Uh, they want us to click. They want us to pay attention to them. So they prioritize the content that makes us click, like, reply. They want that engagement. And the problem is it's hugely unethical, right? And it's and arguably destroying a lot of our social interactions. So I feel like this is a small thing we can do, is to eliminate those notifications. I know some people don't want to do it, but um, you don't need to know every time you get an email, or you don't need to know every time somebody clicks like on your thing. Um, Go and look at these things on your terms. Check it on your terms. Uh, I've noticed it before with like my mom's phone, because that you just have to be hyper vigilant, because I'll see her every few months and her phone will be dinging away and I'll be like, what's that notification? She's like, I don't know, I can't make it stop. So I mean, at least it's getting to this point where it's not eliciting her attention because there's so freaking much of it. But I'll go in and clean it up and turn off all these notifications, and these apps turn them back on again, like when they reset, or like when you get a new phone like this. I cannot believe the notifications. um, this morning I had to look up on the I use Chrome and I have my homepage be Google because I just typically use Google. They're making me not want to use them, but they had the trending searches on there, and I don't want to see the trending searches. I don't fucking care about the trending searches. Um, it's another way for them to grab our attention, right? Oh, go look at this thing that it didn't occur to you until this moment to look at, right? It's like, I don't care what other people are trending, looking at. Uh, it's like supposed to be news, but it's not. So I was looking up how do I tried the settings several different ways, and I so finally Googled or looked at the help, how do I remove this? And it turns out there's like no way to actually do it unless you uncheck English as your default language in the Google search. Fortunately, I found one that's like Elmer Fudd. So we'll see what that does. But if you do that, if you take off English, it'll the trending searches vanish. And it's like, why do we have to do these workarounds? Because they want to control our attention. And every time you weigh whether or not, if you think, well, is it so bad? Just picture Zuckerberg's pasty, pointy face as he's talking about like Facebook Meta, the metaverse. I mean, no, really, just no. End rant. Um, I'm picking my topics. Brittany Murphy, uh, really interesting documentary on HBO, and I think you can get it elsewhere too, called What Happened, Brittany Murphy. I remember being very shocked when Brittany Murphy was found dead. I really liked her as an actress all along, um, and particularly my mom and I loved to watch Uptown Girls. We watched it together a couple of times, and she was so thin in that. I sound like my grandmother. She looked so thin, but she was. And she had just grown increasingly anorexic, and the documentary is fascinating to watch. Some of the critiques on like IMDb and such complain about the use of the vloggers, and like, who cares what they think? But I think I thought it was an interesting choice. I'm not sure it added to it, but I didn't think it detracted. And it certainly gave the sense of like a Greek chorus, and the paparazzi, and the attention seeking, again, crowds all around her. Um, and a lot of things I didn't know. I didn't know about this guy that she'd married, and how pretty awful it sounds like he was. And it was interesting. It was interesting to watch. One of the most striking moments to me, and the documentary didn't highlight it, and I don't know if they deliberately, um, like, if they didn't see it the way I saw it, or if it was a deliberate kind of, I'm just going to leave this here and let you guys see it. But there's a point at which the awful husband brings the documentarian into their house. um, and for a while, it was like he thought that, because he's, I don't know, we use narcissistic personalities so frequently these days, but I mean, he was very um, self-aggrandizing. And so, he is like doing this whole thing kind of preeningly, come and do a tour of the house, and have it be all about me. And he even took the gal into the bathroom where Brittany Murphy was found dead. You know, it. if you don't know, she was just like 32 years old, and they said she died of pneumonia, collapsed in the shower, and the he's saying like, here's where it happened and everything. But the extraordinary thing to me, and the documentary makes no comment on it, is how, what's the word I want? Um, Awful the bathroom looks. I mean, it's not that it's not clean, but that, I mean, it's just, it looks like a hoarder's bathroom. Um, there is just shit piled everywhere, all of these cosmetics and all this stuff, and I think, at least for me, when I picture a celebrity's home, and it's a big, big, beautiful house, right? Millions of dollars house. And when I picture that kind of thing, I always think of, I don't know, maybe I'm too influenced by, the style shows and that sort of thing. But I always picture it looking, spacious and beautiful and kept up, because obviously you can hire help. I don't think they did. That was part of it, is she was really isolated by him. Her mother lived with them too, but I don't know. Maybe it wasn't clean. Um, but I mean, there was just so much shit everywhere, and it was like, maybe it's a sign of someone who's doing drugs, which he was, and um, depressed and exhausted, which he was. But it was so striking to me, and it was like, I don't know, I wanted better for her than that. Isn't that funny? These connections that we make to people we don't know. All right. So the other thing I'm thinking about with fight scenes and sex scenes, it occurred to me later in the day, as these things sometimes do, why people sometimes say that sex scenes are writing sex scenes are just like fight scenes, or that writing them is the same. And yesterday I was dwelling on the physical choreography, that maybe that's why people think that. But today something else occurred to me, or yesterday, um, that I think one reason that people say that is because they regard those scenes as being present in the story for titillation. And the and I think this is where it really breaks down for me, because, like I was talking about yesterday, I'm not someone who finds violence interesting. I don't find violence exciting. Jennifer Estep and I argue about this from time to time, argue in a friendly way, because she loves writing the fight scenes, but she also loves watching football, and which I'm like, no. And she loves action movies, and she loves those kinds of sequences, and I don't. But I think what a lot of people feel like in reading and writing these fight scenes, battle scenes, these action sequences, is that it's there for like the adrenaline rush. It's there to go boom, 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 and make it exciting and heighten emotions and all of that, which I could see that that's if you're reading for entertainment, which most of us do, that's a whole nother rant, that you you want that heart pounding action, right? um and I see readers complain sometimes. They complain about my books. They're like, oh, well, not much, there wasn't much action. And it's like, well, that's probably not going to be my book. Go read Jennifer Stuff. And people love her books for that. But I think that that is where a lot of people are drawing this correlation between the fight scenes and the sex scenes, is that people regard the sex scenes as being there for titillation. And that's an interesting thing, isn't it? Because I love reading and writing the sex scenes. Is it because of the titillation? I mean, definitely I enjoy the wah, wah. I do. I like the sensual excitement of it, and um, I enjoy everything about that, in a way that I do not enjoy violence. And I think not everybody feels that same way. I have like a hair hanging in my eye today. Let me see it. um, but I think that that's probably a kind of backwards way of going about, of approaching writing a scene. Like maybe that's, yesterday I talked about the layering techniques, and I think that's one way to get at it. Um, it's like if you want your scenes, your action scenes or your sex scenes to be more titillating, to be create a more heightened physical and emotional reaction in your reader, then you could go back and layer in those things that make it more heart pounding. But I think that's why, for me, they're so profoundly different in that when I'm writing a sex scene, I'm not thinking about it being titillating. I am thinking about it being an emotional exchange between the characters, which in a way fight scenes, like I talked about extensively yesterday, are not. So that was just a an additional thought on there, and I'm going to keep exploring that thought. Yeah. So novella is coming along pretty well. Uh, it's wanting to be a longer story, you guys. I don't normally run into this with novellas, but this is like the first time. I think, is it? I'm thinking. I think this is the first time I've written a novella that is with brand new characters and not already established characters. So let me think. Dragons of Summer was Ursula and Harlan. What did I do? Oh, well, last year in Under a Winter Sky, I did the novella The Long Night of the Crystalline Moon, and that was new characters, um, Raya and Lena, but that was kicking off the series, so I knew I was going to have time to come back around to them. Um, but before that, Snows of Windroven, Amy and Ash. Yeah. So I think that's part of it. That this particular tale, I'm trying to tell a whole story about two brand new characters, and I'm tending to write it like, I'm shooting for about 25,000 words, which is the typical length of my Act One in a novel. And I'm kind of writing this novel like it's Act One of a novel, and I need to stop doing that. I'm going to have to go back and tighten considerably because I'm at something like 16,000 words and there's still quite a bit to develop. But I can do that. I think there's a lot I can cut from the beginning, as I've mentioned numerous times, because I was sort of writing my way into it. It'll be interesting to go back through and see how much I chop out. But it's kind of funny because I know that it's so front loaded with stuff that I'm almost certain I'm going to be cutting, that I'm not quite sure where my word counts are landing on the beats. But it's a different process for me on this one. But I'm just going to, I think, finish it out and then see where I'm at and go back. Um, yeah, yeah, it's an interesting thing. I messaged Grace telling her I felt like I was pulling a Grace Draven because she always goes long. And I rarely do, but this time it looks like I'm going to. Speaking of which, Grace's flagship book, Radiance, is on sale for $1.99 right now. I'll put a link in the show notes, but hugely popular. It's her, flagship book. It's her book that really launched her and continues to make all kinds of money for her. And people love, love, love Radiance. It's a wonderful enemies to friends to lovers. They're really never actual enemies in the story, but their races are enemies. So it's a wonderful book, and I see she's closing in on 4,000 reviews on Amazon. So go Grace, and she's very happy with the current ranking. So if you have not bought Radiance yet, absolutely go buy it. Available on Kindle for $1.99. And on that note, I will remind you all that First Cup of Coffee is part of the Frolic Media Podcast Network, and you will find more podcasts that you love at frolic.media/podcasts. And I will talk to you all on Thursday. You all take care. Honor the ancestors. Bye bye.